So hello everyone. I am Ishan. I am a machine learning engineer at a fintech in Ahmedabad, Glip.ai. And basically, we are into intelligent document processing for credit decisioning for NBFCs and banks. Right. So let's begin today's recap on AIML. So the first thing that they have introduced is the SageMaker notebooks. So the Jupyter Lab was integrated with AWS quite a while back, but now they have introduced shared spaces for developers. So like machine learning engineers, they can share notebooks, so they can collaborate simultaneously in real time with one another. So they don't have to refer to code from some other notebook and use that code from other notebook into their notebook, so they can see the changes that other developer or other engineer is working on. So that is one thing that it is introduced in SageMaker notebooks. So it's a boon. So other than that, so this is one more thing. So like for generally for data scientists, the Jupyter notebook is a very important resource they use, because the visualizations are much more easy to do in Jupyter notebooks, right? So you cannot write a Python script and do the visualization at the same time. You need a notebook, you need cells to visualize different types of data. So whether a data is missing out of the data frame, or you derive the distribution of certain columns. So for that you need notebooks. So they have given more importance to the notebooks in this the reinvent. So now they have automated the notebook. So you can, like earlier what we used to do was, like we used to write Python scripts, and based on those Python scripts we would run jobs for training, testing and inference, right? But now you would be able to directly, like they've automated the entire process. The notebook you'll be able to create job using the notebook. So you'll be able to schedule these jobs, and the model would be trained, it would be validated, and the inference would also be run. So the entire dependency and everything would be installed and created based on this notebook. So you have written import statements and all. So the Amazon will, like this service will automatically create the Docker image for that, and it will deploy, train the model, and after the training is done, it will revert back, and it will delete all the dependencies and everything from the job. So that is one thing that they've introduced. The second part, the Jupyter notebooks that I talked about, the SageMaker notebooks, in fact, that I talked about, these are basically for data scientists, not MLOps engineers. So MLOps prepares the entire pipeline, and the data scientists, basically what they do is they give insight into the data, right? So the Jupyter notebook, the SageMaker notebooks would help you get insights into the data. So that is the primary thing that they'll help you with. And when we compare the notebooks with Python scripts, there are a lot of libraries that are there. Like they have introduced SageMaker Data Wrangler. So that will be able to generate automatic insights, and it will give you the insights automatically, right? You don't have to write a script to generate insights into the data. So basically it will generate the insights that this column, this data point is missing. So what do you want to do? Do you want to convert, like do you want to get an average of all the data points and put it there? It will autofill the missing data as well for you. So that is about Data Wrangler. And the another thing is the geospatial data. So Amazon had earlier introduced Amazon location services, right? So based on the location services, they have collected a lot of geospatial data. So, and based on this geospatial data, they have developed deep learning models. So like it has already put the pre-trained deep learning models into the geospatial part of the service, and you would be able to use this pre-trained model to do downstream tasks. So for example, when we consider the recent earthquake in Turkey, so like you would be able to estimate how much damage that earthquake has done to the economy using these models, because it has the geospatial data that was there earlier, and now you can collect the damage that is done, and you can compare that using your model. So you can train a model over these pre-trained weights, and you can develop a lot of insights using them. So that is one thing, and that comes under the geospatial part. So yeah, as I was talking earlier, the another service is SageMaker Data Wrangler. So this is a very important service, and it would help a lot of people in the machine learning space. So basically, there are a lot of services as I talked. So there is a lot of help for data visualization here. Everything is automated. So there might be a column in your data frame which is biased towards certain class. So if you are aware about machine learning, there is a classification task and a regression task, right? Classification, you need to predict whether something is going to occur or not. So there are options. So when you talk about these options, you need, in terms of supervised data, you need a lot of data, and that data has to be tagged. Let's say there are 6 features, then you would get this response. Another set of 6 features would give you another response. So based on these classification tasks, there can be an imbalance in your training data. So the data wrangler would be able to give you the exact measure of imbalance, and how would you, transform that data into a more balanced data, which would give you better results in terms of training, right? So that data wrangler would help you with that. And other than that, it also helps you with bringing the data from other SaaS sources into your pipeline, right? So you need data to come to you in order to from different sources to process that, right? So this has an integration with Amazon Airflow, and you would be able to import from 40 different SaaS application. You would be able to get data for deriving insights, right? So that integration also is there. So yeah, this SageMaker Data Wrangler also deals with a very good problem that the machine learning engineers were facing while training the model. So when we train the model, there are certain steps of pre-processing that are needed while training the model, right? So you need to transform data into in such a way that your model can take in that data, right? So that data transformation script we used to write for training the model, and then while we are serving, like when we are doing inference or the client is using that model, we need to transform the client data into the model inference pipeline, right? So we need to, similar type of transformation needs to be done at the inference end as well, right? So data wrangler automates this transformation. So the part of pre-processing that we were doing during the training, same pre-processing module data wrangler will generate at the time of inference. So we as engineers don't have to work on replicating the code that we wrote during the training phase, right? So this is one thing it does, and like your workload is significantly reduced due to the automation on the inference side. And the other thing is that they've also developed the governance tools. So like, let's say, since I work in a fintech company, so we have a lot of models. So for bank statement analysis, we have a separate model. Then for payslip analysis, we have a separate model. So all of these models performance needs to be tracked, right? So that can like now be done in the same like space. You are getting all the models, how these models are performing, what is the different metrics that you need. Let's say the bias drift, so that's a technical term that comes into machine learning. So how biased your model is, how much is the variance in your model. These kind of metrics also are provided in this screen. So yeah, this is a dashboard that they provide for keeping all the models in the same space so that you can analyze. And they've also introduced permissions. So as a data scientist, you don't want to give data scientist an access to creating the infrastructure, and you also don't want to give an MLOps engineer access to fidgeting with the data pre-processing modules and everything. So you can likewise give access to both people in a different like role system. So they have introduced this. So like only the services a data scientist use, you can give an access to that to the data scientist, and you can give the services that are infrastructure oriented to an MLOps engineer. Yeah. So one another thing like generally used in the practice, which was not there earlier, is the shadow testing. So we often, like with machine learning models, there is a shadow testing that is often done by many companies. So whenever you make a much improved model, you would deploy that model, and you would link all of your services to that model. such that the result won't be given to the client. It would just be for your internal analysis. So whether the new model is working good enough or not. So that is basically shadow testing. So you're not giving anything to the client, you're just doing an internal testing, real-time testing based on the client data rather than evaluating it on your validation script. So this automation is also done by the AWS in this reInvent. So they have introduced the shadow testing module. So you would be able to automatically create a shadow testing module. So your model will be deployed in a shadow testing environment and it will be tested on real-time data. So you won't have to do it, but it would be automatically a service is available that would help you do that. So that is a benefit. And this is another thing. So like in our day-to-day life also, there is a service known as Amazon Textract. Many of you would have already, I think, used the Textract APIs. So it basically it is used to provide the textual data out of a document. So it would give you all the words in a tabular form. If the data is in a tabular form, it would give you tables. So this is the Textract service. So this time in the reInvent, they discussed that they have introduced an analyzing API for lending purposes. This is a similar type of task that we as a company do in a on a daily basis. So they have done this based on the US documents. So US bank statements and US payslips and all of those documents are analyzed, and they are collected, analyzed, and they give you the analyzed report out of these APIs, right? So yeah, so this is basically it. So they would analyze these three types of document: payslip, identity proof, and bank statements. And these are all the US based documents that they are doing, and the analyzed report they would provide you. So earlier what they were doing is they were just extracting the tables and the text out of the table, right? So all the analysis was happening at the, you would be able to do analysis as a client. You would use the Textract, and after you get the Textract data, you would analyze the entire data. But now they've introduced the analyze lending API that would help you analyze the data. So for intelligent document processing, earlier Amazon Comprehend was used. So what you had to do is you had to extract the data out of Amazon Textract, and then you had to give the text to this Comprehend API. So this is an NLP based engine which would be focused totally on the language, and it would do the analysis based on the language, right? So it would derive the entities out of let's say a form. So if you have a driving license or maybe an insurance form, you need to extract name out of that form or date of birth out of that form, right? So earlier what used to happen is you would give text to the NLP based module and it would help you extract the entities, like the entities I right now mentioned. Now what they have done is they have given an option to they have made the Amazon Comprehend more intelligent in terms of accepting PDFs and images. So what it now does is, rather than taking in text, it can also take PDFs and images, take out the text, and then carry out the language processing on that text to give you the entities. So a step in your process has been reduced. You don't have to use text extractor before calling the Amazon Comprehend. So that is another thing that they have introduced. Apart from that, they have made Amazon Kendra a bit better in terms of extracting the tabular data out of the HTML forms, and they have extended the language support for hierarchical data. So in XML, generally a lot of time it happens that you have a lot of hierarchical data into the table as well. So there is one table, inside that table there is another table and another table, right? So that type of multi-language data can also be extracted using Amazon Kendra. And lastly, they have introduced these service cards. So for different activities like Textract Analyze API that we talked about, and face matching API. So these are just the documentation service cards that they have introduced. You can look into these documentation cards while using the service to get a better insight into what these services use, how are they configured, and what are their capabilities. So yeah, they have introduced, and these are, I think, they are in the preview mode and they would change as and when like we progress. So yeah, that's about it from my end in terms of the AI ML part. Thank you guys.